Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to finally the talk with AVC Year 2 here at Iona College on WICR. It's been a while. It's great to be back, and thankfully there are sports to talk about, so I don't have to sit here and ramble about nonsense for about an hour. So, little delay. We had some technical issues, as you can see. There's a lot of different things here at the studio. I'm in a mask and all this other stuff, but I'm still going to be pushing ahead, trying to give you guys the best show I can. So, of course, we're going to start with, as always, our MLB baseball segment. So, the season has gone on, and if you didn't know about all the other stuff, we are now in a condensed 60-game season with an extended playoffs and a lot of gimmicks thrown in. As far as some of the gimmicky stuff going on this season, I'm 50-50 on a lot of it. I like the 7-inning doubleheaders. I think it's nice. It gives guys some extra rest. I don't think you need to be playing 9-inning doubleheaders. One rule I completely disagree with is the way they start extra innings with the runner on second base already there. I think it's nonsense. It's a gimmick. It's going to need to go as soon as possible. That needs to be gone next year because that is just awful. So, as anybody who's followed this knows, I am a diehard Yankee fan, and right now the Yankees are struggling, and it's basically the same thing as last year. Injuries, and more injuries. I can't really pick them apart too much because the key contributors aren't even on the field, but there are a few people I can pick apart right now. And of course, we're going to start with the man behind the dish. We're going to start with Gary Sanchez. Now, obviously, he just has not had a great season. He is last in the MLB in batting average. He just got benched for 40-year-old journeyman catcher Eric Kratz. He just seems completely lost at the plate, even though he's hit about 6 home runs. And in a condensed season, that's pretty solid. He just is not getting on base. He's had multiple games with at least 2 to 4 strikeouts. And he's just not touching the ball. He's not putting it in play. He's not working walks. He is a complete liability at the bat. And with guys like Judge, Stanton hurt right now, that can't be happening. We need a guy like Sanchez to step up. Gleyber has just returned, and obviously he is not fully ready to go. Boone is scared to have anybody else injured, so he's kind of micromanaging everybody, including Gleyber and LeMahieu. Gleyber was not doing the best coming into this stretch off the IL, but I'm hopeful he can turn it around. The bigger concern with me than his bat is his defense. He has not looked comfortable or solid at shortstop. And quite frankly, I think it's just not looking like he can be a long-term shortstop. Guys that we were expecting to step up this year, like Miguel Andujar, sadly have not done that. But thankfully, guys like Clint Frazier have. Now, Clint Frazier basically turned himself from trade bait to an immovable asset at the deadline and has been one of the best hitters in the lineup. So has Luke Voit. And, of course, DJ LeMahieu, continuing his fabulous season from last year, has carried that over into this year. He is a must-resign this offseason. As far as the $300 million man, Garrett Cole, I think he's getting a little bit too much hate right now. While he is not pitched entirely up to expectations, you also have to remember first year in New York, he is a strikeout pitcher. He throws the ball very hard. He's going to give up home runs, but he's played very solid, and he's actually better than he was last year at this point through this many games. Okay, so enough about the Yankees. Let's talk about the rest of baseball. We're going to go into our pretenders and contenders list. We've done this before on the show from last year. If you don't remember, basically I go through the playoff hopefuls and say whether they're true World Series contenders or if they are not. So we're going to start with probably one of the best teams in baseball right now, in the Tampa Bay Rays. They are a contender. It is strange because a lot of non-hardcore baseball fans don't know many of the players on the roster. It took me some research to get to know them too. But every guy they put in steps up. They have great pitching, even though a lot of it is injured right now. Kevin Cash, as much as I don't like him, has been a very solid manager this year. And just everybody in their lineup is contributing, and they just look good. They just look really good. So it's great. It's great. And for them, and it's nice for a small market team. Unfortunately, they won't have fans, but that's really pretty much normal for the Rays. Moving on next, we've got, again, as I just talked about, the Yankees. This is a tough team to say this with because, again, I would say contenders if everybody's healthy. If Judge and Stanton and some other people don't return, then quite honestly, I think they're pretenders. They need to be at least 85% strength in order to make a solid case as a contender. Otherwise, they're going to get knocked in the first or second round. The Blue Jays, pretender. Not that I don't like what they're doing this year. They got a nice lot of young pieces. They re-cemented some stuff at the trade deadline with some high risk, high reward actions like Taijuan Walker. However, I still think they're a year or two away from truly competing with some of the bigger teams in the AL. The White Sox, same thing as the Blue Jays. I think they're a pretender. I think I'd give them another year or two before they are a true World Series contender. They need to resubmit the bottom end of their starting rotation. They also need to add a little bit of depth into the bullpen, but their youth is starting to emerge, and I really do like what they're doing in Chicago. It looks like their rebuild is finally starting to bear fruit. Cleveland, pretender. While they have some consistently solid producers like Francisco Lindor and a great starting pitching staff, their bullpen is just really shaky. And, they kind of do this every year. I just don't trust them come playoff time. So that's why I'm putting them in the pretender spot. That could change if some other guys step up. The Twins. I'm going to go pretender. Their pitching staff needs to prove more to me before I am comfortable calling them a contender. I don't trust their pitching staff. They have a very solid lineup, but I just don't trust their pitching staff. Oakland Athletics. I'm going to say contender. It's crazy. I did not have this in the beginning of the season, but everybody in Oakland is kind of like Tampa Bay. Everybody's stepping up at the right time. And in a condensed season, this really could work. Oakland has some solid pitching. They have some solid hitting. They got depth throughout the lineup. I like what they're doing, and I think they're going to be a real problem for teams come playoff time. Last in the AL, we got Houston, pretender. They are taking advantage of a AL West where really Oakland is the only quality team. Houston's core contributors have not looked as sharp as previous years. Gee, I wonder why. Their pitching is a mess, and without Verlander, I don't see them getting very far in this playoffs, as their bullpen is also rather top-heavy. Now moving to the NL, the Chicago Cubs. I'm going to go contender. Everybody seems to be playing up the snuff. Some of the big bats in the lineup finally seem to have reemerged. The one thing that worries me about them is their bullpen, but I think they have enough in terms of experience and depth to make a solid run, especially in the NL. Braves, contender. They looked like a contender last year. They look like a contender this year. Their lineup, their bullpen, their starting rotation is a little shaky, but I think it's solid enough to get through. Dodgers are a contender. I don't really need to beat the dead horse about this. Their bullpen still does scare me quite a bit, but I think they're going to be okay going on through the rest of the year. Mookie Betts just added another dimension to that lineup. San Diego. This is a tough one. I'm going to say contender, but it's going to be with a little bit of an asterisk. If Kirby Yates was healthy, I would be a lot more confident in San Diego. But I do like their lineup. I think their starting pitching is solid. They have depth everywhere. They're starting to emerge. I do like them. I just don't know without Yates if they'll be able to make it through the NL. St. Louis, pretender. They are taking advantage of a weak NL Central or an underperforming NL Central outside of Chicago. And I just don't see them competing with a lot of these big boys at the top unless their bullpen really steps up, because they lost Miller, Hicks, and that's just the top end of their bullpen pretty much. Philadelphia, pretender. No bullpen. You don't have a bullpen? I'm sorry, I can't take you seriously as a true World Series contender. And Harper's returning the form aside, I don't trust Philadelphia in this situation. I think, quite honestly, they're just kind of riding off of an NL East where the Mets are injured to hell and Miami is Miami. Now, just looking through some of these other teams, I don't think Milwaukee is going to reemerge. I don't think Cincinnati is going to reemerge. If you remember, I said on this show, I had Cincinnati as one of the most overrated teams coming into the season, and it appears I look to be right on that so far. They just got a lot of names, and I just don't think it's working really well together. So, where does that leave us for the rest of baseball? Well, again, we have this extended playoffs, and if the season ended today, I believe it would be the Yankees taking on Tampa. And I believe Oakland taking on Houston. Yes. Cleveland taking on Toronto. Chicago taking on Minnesota. LA taking on San Fran, actually. San Fran, I didn't even get to mention them because I didn't think about them. Pretender. They don't have the pieces. They're just overperforming right now. San Diego and St. Louis, Atlanta and Colorado, Chicago and Philadelphia. If I had to make a World Series prediction right now, it's a little tough, but I think I would go probably Tampa Bay and Atlanta. I think that's the two teams that I have the most confidence in, though I could also see Oakland giving Tampa Bay a push. And I could also see the Dodgers giving Atlanta a hard time. All right, I think that's going to do it for this baseball segment. We will be back shortly with our football segment, and I will see you guys all then.